Hello there, right here, and what you see behind me is an insane new farm for 1.19. This farm will produce the Sculk blocks, the Sculk veins, and is also XP farm. Now let's take a look at how this 3-in-1 farm is actually possible. So I'm here in the Bedrock edition because this is where they have the brand new Sculk blocks in the game. But as you guys know, I actually don't play Bedrock edition. This was the first time I ever played it, and I had Prowl8413 join me in teaching me the ways of the Bedrock. Prowl is also a YouTuber, and he does videos about guides on the Bedrock edition, including farms and updates. He's also really close to 40,000 subscribers, so check out his link down below and subscribe. A quick rundown of the 5 Sculk blocks. For those that didn't see the Minecraft live event, the Sculk sensor detects different things, which I covered a lot in these videos, which I'll have down below. There's also the Sculk Shrieker, and if you accidentally step on it, it's going to shriek, and it's going to give you the darkness effect. And if you push Z on Bedrock, it shows the actual new effect. It's only for a short period of time, and it's kind of currently broken snapshot, so it only goes off one time. The developers did say there will be other ways to activate it, such as like using redstone, which would be cool for mini games. The next block is the Sculk Catalyst, which is the most fascinating one. Any mob that is killed near it will then convert the surrounding natural blocks into the new Sculk block or the new vein block. The area in which one catalyst can convert into the Sculk blocks is an 8-block sphere around the center of it. So if a mob dies like right here, it will convert some of the nearby blocks to the Sculk and some over into the veins. The natural blocks which it can convert so far are shown here, similar to the moss blocks, and Prowl thought that these blocks are probably a bug currently. If the Sculk blocks are broken in survival, they're going to drop XP orbs equivalent to 2.5 XPs. Breaking the veins won't give you any XP. Currently, the amount of Sculk blocks that are placed in is determined by how many catalysts are nearby. So if you have a whole bunch of catalysts nearby, the amount of area is almost going to be always a consistent maxed out area, which is currently this 3-block sphere of Sculk blocks and an outer ring of the vein. But the developers did say that depending on the mob that dies and how much XPs it would typically drop if player killed would determine how big this area is going to be. So something like an Ender Dragon would make a really big area of conversion, where like passive mobs would be smaller. That's something cool we can look forward to. Now, a player dying won't actually cause the Sculk to spread, and even mobs that don't give XPs, it will still convert the blocks. But it doesn't work on non-living mobs like boats, carts, and armor stands. The lore behind it is that when the mob dies, this device will suck up the souls. You can see the souls come at the top, and it will distribute them into the nearby ground. And that's why you get XPs when you break the Sculk blocks. But despite them being soul related, soul speed doesn't actually work on this. It does have some properties similar to moss blocks, where it doesn't convert into blocks that don't have enough air above it. But in other cases, it can also convert a bunch of blocks if they're vertically. And underneath of that one, it doesn't convert. But underneath of some transparent blocks, it can be converted. It can also convert underneath of water, but it won't place in any vine. Now in Bedrock Edition, all these blocks can actually be pushed and pulled by pistons except for the vein block, which will get destroyed. We'll have to see if this is also added into Java, as currently we can't move Sculk blocks. The appropriate tool for all of these blocks is using a hoe. Breaking the catalyst will give XP, breaking the Sculk block will give XP, breaking the Shrieker will give XP, and breaking the sensor will give you the item, and the vein gives nothing. Using Silk Touch on each of these will give the item, so you can actually get the Sculk item moved around into a farm. You can also get the Sculk blocks and add them as like a carried XP source, similar to like an XP orb. They only give 2.5, but on average, XP ball gives 7, but these are a lot easier to acquire in large amounts. You can also Silk Touch the Shrieker and get the item, as well as, of course, get the Sculk sensor, and the veins can be Silk Touched. Mobs currently have problem with pathfinding over top of the veins, similar to like pathfinding over top block 36 in Java Edition. They think it's a full block and they try to walk on top of it. The Sculk blocks can be instant mined with efficiency 5 netherite hoe, as well as the veins. The veins are very similar to the lichen, where you can place it on all sides, as well as it can be waterlogged. Now, something odd that I discovered during testing is that you can use TNT to blow up the majority of the blocks, and the ones that you normally would break and give you XP will actually drop the XP, which is really cool. But the weird thing is that the catalyst block, which you typically have to Silk Touch in order to get it as an item form, can be blown up and can be acquired as an item. This means it's actually like Silk Touch TNT when it comes to the catalyst. Now in 1.17, the developers did say that they wanted to get away from having pigmen automatically drop XPs when they're just mad at the player. That means my pigmen gold farms, like this one here that I use in my beacon farm, would no longer work the same way. You would have to then kill the pigmen in a player means, meaning that with swords, potions, dogs, etc. And the developers hinted at that in 1.19 they are going to implement this change, and that's probably why they're coming out with the Sculk sensor, to kind of try to replace the pigment gold farms. Now you can still run these gold farms and just AFK with like a macro and a sword, but it does kind of ruin the whole AFK setup that I enjoy aiming for when I try to design these automatic farms. Hopefully they eventually come out with the combat changes so that you can just hold down your attack button and then your player will automatically swing every second or so. That way Minecraft is encouraging a more healthier gameplay, as repetitive clicking can result in a lot of different types of injuries. So I'm not upset if they remove aggro pigment dropping XP, as long as they introduce something to replace it. And the whole Sculk dropping XP might be their attempt to try to replace it, but this is a kind of a poor attempt, as the player still needs to break the blocks, and the blocks give so little amount. Now the problem in Java Edition is that the XP orbs will all pile up, and then the player, when he tries to take them in, has to take them in one at a time, which is really slow. Now the XP orbs are also supposed to merge together, but they really don't work well so far. So limitations in Java is that it just takes time for each XP orb to go in, and if each orb doesn't contain that much XP, it's just going to be a lot of entities in order to get similar rates as like a pigment XP farm, as each of these orbs that it drops can be a size of 5. So using them as an actual XP farm might only be good for like early game, but silk touching them just for a building block or to collect them so that you can use them later as kind of a mobile XP source to use with your mending tools and repair them. This would be more realistic use for mid game and even end game. So I want my Sculk block farm to be designed for this. Don't forget to like and subscribe. So now we understand how the different Sculk blocks work. We can actually come over here into the Java Edition, even though the Sculk blocks aren't out for the Java Edition. So what I got here is a mob source that we have a lot of in the game. It's easy to get a whole bunch of, and that is Enderman. So every Enderman, when it dies, is going to produce some of the Sculk blocks as well as the Sculk veins. So this is actually my Enderman setup that I showed a couple weeks ago, where they just spawn, they fall down this tube, and then they fall on top of a dripstone point, which is right in the center here. The lava in the center is to try to remove any extra ender pearls that fly out, just to reduce the number of entities. And it also doesn't interfere with the Sculk generating because this is transparent blocks. And we know if the mobs die here, that any natural blocks underneath will be converted to the Sculk block. Now the block that I chose to be converted is stone, because it's really easy to make a stone generator. And I actually have 2 stone generators. I got one on this side and one on this side, and these are the exact same ones I use inside my moss farm. So if any blocks are broken here in the center, they're going to try to push in new ones. So since we don't have the actual Sculk converting blocks in this version, I went ahead and just made a command block that does pretty much the exact same thing. It just goes over here, and every time Enderman dies, it converts any of the stone underneath into netherwart blocks, which works similar to Sculk blocks when mined with a hoe. So the first thing this farm can do is get you the actual Sculk block in block form. This is good for storing as XP source or as a building block. Now because the Endermen come down and die so quickly, it's not really necessary to try to get as much area as possible for the Sculk to spread on. Instead, it's better for the player to sit in kind of a smaller area and just mine whatever is in front of it. And that's why I stuck with the player just mining 3 sets of 5. So we'll just go ahead and hop in this farm, and right underneath here we have a honey block that's moving back and forth to 3 different locations, so he can mine all 3 blocks very quickly. And this is just done by update order. The reason why we don't have the player writing anything is because it will cut the mining speed by half, and we need the player to have a efficiency 5 hoe in order to insta mine this. And there is also a clock up here which you can use to adjust how fast you want the player to move between locations. Once you get into the system, it's pretty simple. All you do is have to hold down the left mouse button, and then the player just removes any of the Sculk blocks that are in front of him. So you can see that the player mines them up really quickly, and we're actually just waiting on the stone generators to produce more stone. But because it's so easy to get lots of these blocks in large amounts, I didn't think it was worth making this farm too extremely fast. And this allowed us to keep it simple as well as small. Now all the blocks that are being mined are getting picked up by this hopper minecart underneath, and then the hoppers underneath those are picking up the items out of the hopper minecart and placing them over into these chests over here. So besides getting the actual Sculk block, you can use a non-silk touch hoe that has efficiency 5 and also unbreaking as well as mending, and then you could AFK here and break these blocks, and it could be a XP farm, because any Sculk block that you don't break with silk touch would drop the 2.5 XPs each. This would actually be infinitely automatic AFK XP farm, and that's because the hoe itself wouldn't ever break because the XPs would mend it. Though I wouldn't really recommend using this as an XP farm just because it gives so few XP, and it would be better to just whack the Enderman using like my Enderman farm. And if you want to AFK, you can use my Enderman water bottle farm. So far we looked at how we can get the actual Sculk block as well as XPs. Now we're going to take a look at how to get the vein block. So to get the veins, we need to make sure that the block that is underneath of where they're going to be generated is a non-natural block. So let's go ahead and turn off our stone generator, because we won't need that anymore. We don't need the stone because it is a natural block. And instead we're going to come in and just replace this with a different type of block, and this will allow the veins to be placed on top of it. So I put in a different command that is put in Lichen above it, and Lichen is very similar to the vein blocks. The only difference is that we have to use a shears in order to do that for our testing. And this is where the campfires come in. That's because if the player stands on top of a campfire, he's going to be perfectly aimed so that he can look straight down all of the different blocks in front of him and reach a total distance of 5. So if we go ahead and just hold down left mouse, and because we're not waiting for the stone to generate, it's actually really fast. And this is where the Hopper minecart really shines, as it's picking up all the items through these blocks and then dropping off in the chest. Now, because the developers are in the early stages of this block, I will be tweaking this farm before the final release of 1.18, so check the description for the latest version of it. And for this reason, I won't be doing a tutorial on it, but instead I will be giving the world download in the description. I also made an automatic mud and clay farm for 1.19, and I do all my designing live on Twitch every Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. You made it this far, so leave a like and subscribe, then check out this playlist over here to see how I design a farm for every item in the game of Minecraft. And check out this playlist over here to see future changes coming to Minecraft. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye!